Hey everybody. So, I think I might be a feminist. I'm not sure. I've never read a checklist or taken a test or anything. But by and large, I believe that women can do anything a man can do. Apart from the whole giving birth thing. I think that's a foregone conclusion. But I don't care how big and strong a guy you think you are. Somewhere in the world is a woman who can kick your butt. I've met her. She's a very close friend of mine. So, with that in mind, I would like to take this opportunity to look at a movie starring one of the butt-kickingest women of cinema, Cynthia Rothrock. This is Undefeatable. Our movie opens with a woman in a therapy session. This is not our main character, nor is her therapist our main character, nor do either one of them know our main character. But she wants to talk about how her husband's become abusive lately, and she's not happy about that. Okay, for the sake of that whole feminist thing, let's just... If your man hits you, you leave. End of story. No takesy-backsies. No, I can make him better. He hits you, you go. Man, I really hope this review gets funnier, don't you? It turns out her husband participates in illegal underground boxing. With, like, a ring and everything. Okay, to be fair, that's the same face I make when somebody takes the last sun-kissed out of my fridge.
Do you have anywhere else to stay?
I didn't alter that in any way. It's like they accidentally left the camera on, or the director just wandered off without saying cut, or the scriptwriter forgot to finish writing the scene. Anyway, enough of this domestic abuse stuff. I came here for some fun. Apparently, in a completely different movie, a couple of thugs holding up a gas station are stopped by a kung fu cop. Is that a common thing? Are there a lot of cops who are masters of kung fu?
Suck my dick!
What kind of battle cry is that? Seriously, I mean, clearly you don't literally mean what you're saying, but you are saying it to another dude. Is he supposed to be like, okay? It doesn't really strike fear into the heart, you know what I'm saying? It's just confusing. Meanwhile, in a third movie, we finally meet Miss Rothrock, who's about to get involved in an illegal street fight for money. Apparently, this is the kind of thing that happens a lot in this world. I'd like to take a moment to talk here about the wardrobe choices our street fighters are making. Our guy here has chosen to wrap himself in 2 giant chains. Okay, I guess I can kind of see the appeal, like it'll make somebody punching you more hesitant, because, you know, it would really hurt if you punch the guy and you hit the chain, but you're doing kind of an MMA thing here. You're not just boxing, you're going up against multiple martial arts, mixed martial arts, in fact. So if you're going up against somebody with Aikido or Judo, you know, which involves grabbing and throwing, those chains are just handles, man. They're just going to throw you all over the alley. Meanwhile, Miss Rothrock is wearing these gloves that cover up her entire hand except the knuckles. You know, the part she's going to be using. If I was going to have to punch somebody over and over and over again, I'd want something covering my knuckles, is what I'm saying. I mean, that's the part that's going to get abraded, that's going to get hurt. I don't know that I need protection here or here. I want a little protection here, is what I'm saying. I honestly can't decide if this fight is well choreographed or cartoony. It really seems to waver back and forth between the two options. So, Cynthia Rothrock wins, but right before she can collect her winnings, the illegal fight is broken up by Kung Fu Cop. So, the rest of Miss Rothrock's gang goes to her sister. And just check out the amazing job of acting that the gang does.
Don't tell me Christy got you all to apply. I thought she was joking.
No, we applied, but they wouldn't let us in. They said our IQs were too high.
Anyway.
The gang tells Cynthia's sister that Cynthia wasn't fighting. She was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And if Cynthia's sister will go down to the police station, they'll probably let Cynthia go because they'll see how pretty her sister is. That's actually almost the argument they make. The real argument, the real logic here is that if the cops see that Cynthia has a sister in college, they'll just let her off the illegal street fighting rep because, You know, if you've got a sister in college, how can you be a bad person?
Cops. Why aren't y'all doing your job, arresting murderers and rapists, instead of arresting innocent people?
Okay, this is one of the dumbest arguments against law enforcement ever, and I see it all the time. A cop has several aspects to his job, but probably the biggest, the majority of the job, is arresting people for illegal activity. Street fighting's illegal, so you get picked up when they catch you street fighting. Murder and rape are also illegal. If they caught you doing that, you would also be arrested. You aren't an innocent person if you're breaking the law just because you happen to think that that law is less important than other laws. It's not up to you to decide what is or isn't legal. Right? Just because you think what you're doing shouldn't be illegal doesn't mean the cops shouldn't arrest you for it. If they see you breaking the law, they will arrest you. Now, maybe if right next to the illegal street fight was like a guy raping a chick, perhaps the cops would focus on arresting that guy versus the people doing the illegal street fighting. Maybe. I mean, maybe that's how the prioritization would go, but that's not what happened. You were breaking the law, so they picked you up for breaking the law. Your opinion on the law doesn't matter. The fact that it's a law is pretty black and white. Your opinion on the law can maybe come into play in the court process. But the cops don't get to go, you know what? I think that's a silly law. I probably shouldn't arrest the person for that. No, they don't make the law. They enforce it. And I don't mean to start a huge debate here because I know there's all this police brutality stuff and there's how far is too far for enforcing the law and there's all of that. That's a whole separate debate. And there are a couple of different sides to that debate. But you can't argue that you're picking up an innocent person when they just saw you breaking the law. Now, in the case of this specific movie, I will say, the police arrived after the fight was over. The police arrived as the money was being handed to the winner. They have no evidence that a fight took place. Nobody's willing to say that a fight took place. All they saw was a chick getting handed some money. Yeah, she's got some bruises. Guess what? You can bruise anywhere. So him threatening to keep her in the interrogation room for a week, you have no proof of anything at all. But the original argument, the I wasn't doing anything wrong, you should go after real criminals. They go after the criminals they can find. As they see a crime, they arrest that criminal. It's not rocket science. As soon as Kung Fu Cop learns that Cynthia's sister is there, he decides to let her go. Why? I mean, just 2 minutes ago, you were saying that you were going to keep her here until you got the information you needed. Then she started yelling at you. Is it really because she has a sister in college? Really? Oh, your sister's in college. You can go. Does that work? Because I can enroll my sister in a college and go rob some banks if that works. Cynthia must make a lot of money street fighting because apparently she has a full-time job, but the street fighting money is what's helping her put her sister through college. If fighting illegally on the streets can earn you a college tuition's worth of money, I should look into it. Back in our first movie, you remember the lady in therapy? Well, her husband Paul comes home and goes full phantasmagoria. Rapes her right there in front of us, and we have to watch it. The entire scene only takes a minute, but it feels much longer. I guess it's a testament to the directing and acting of this scene that it's extremely uncomfortable to watch. And the last thing I ever need to see is Paul's O-face as he mentally flashes to killing a guy in the ring while he's raping his wife. I don't have a joke here. This is uncomfortable. Thankfully, Paul's wife decides to leave him after that. She's had enough. Thank God. But her leaving causes Paul to snap. The movie tries to tell us that he has serious abandonment issues stemming from childhood. And so the idea of somebody leaving him drives him insane. Well, gee, Paul, maybe if you didn't go around raping or killing everybody, they wouldn't leave you.
Don't leave me, Mommy. I promise to be good.
Well, that wasn't creepy. He completes his mental break by spray painting red stripes in his hair and going to look for his wife. I don't know why he spray paints red stripes in his hair. They're there for the next couple scenes and then they're gone. Crazy! Paul comes across a woman who looks nothing like his wife, Anna. But apparently he decides it's close enough, so he tries to grab her, and that girl's husband fights him off. And it's probably just Paul's really bad luck that the first time he tries to abduct somebody, they're a professional martial artist. Something like that couldn't possibly happen again. The fight ends with Paul gouging out the guy's eyes and throwing him off a parking structure before abducting the woman he thinks is Anna. Paul then proceeds to torture and murder the woman, which is dark and disturbing, and we're going to skip to the police investigation. Kung Fu Cop reveals that the guy that Paul murdered was actually the world karate champion. So Paul's the undefeatable from the title, right? He's got to be the unstoppable if he just took out the world karate champion. Now, I'm going to show you this next clip exactly as it is in the film. Then I'll come back and try and tell you what you just saw.
Put out an APB on the vehicle, along with a description on the girl.
Sergeant, the captain's on the radio for you.
Great. What next?
So that little cut you just saw, where he was walking towards the camera and then he was walking away from the camera? Yeah, what happened during that cut was he talked to the police chief on the radio, was informed about another murder victim on the other side of town, drove to the other side of town, and then went to investigate her body. All of that happened in that little cut. It all happened, we didn't see any of it. It happened off camera in that cut. That is a lot to put into a little cut. Hey, come talk to the chief. Anyways, I'm now at this second murder investigation scene on the other side of town. Was the film running long and you just had to cut transitions or something? What the hell is this? Meanwhile, Cynthia Rothrock is about to get into another illegal street fight. And I'm starting to notice that she always fights for the same guy. His name is Rocco, and he always shows up with these two Secret Service looking guys with him. And that's it. The rest of the audience for these fights are the posses of the fighters. That's it. Her illegal fighting ring is this one guy paying money for whoever wins these fights. There's no crowd, there's no betting, there's no nothing. This guy, Rocco, must just have like a serious amount of cash and really enjoy watching people pummel each other. And her next opponent is Andy Dwyer from Parks and Rec, wearing a football costume for no reason whatsoever. Who knew that the wacky and wild get-ups of the characters from Street Fighter were actually indicative of how real underground street fighters dress? We actually get a brief rundown of the rules this time, which are no weapons, and if your hand touches the ground, you lose. That's the out. So, it's not to the death, it's just whoever's hand touches the ground, they failed. And I'm pointing this out because I want you to watch how Andy Dwyer begins this match.
Ready? Fight!
Right.
So, he just lost, right? Because as soon as the fight began, he put his hand on the ground so that he could do the most ludicrous opening move in a fight humanly possible. Because it's not just a bull rush, which is not a good move unless you're right up on the person, because they can see it coming. But this isn't just a bull rush that they could see coming and dodge out of the way. This is a bull rush that he telegraphed for like 30 seconds ahead of time by putting his hand down on the ground and getting his shoulders ready. And nobody says that he loses for putting his hand down on the ground, even though they just said that's how you lose. Because apparently, putting your hand on the ground is different from putting your hand on the ground. So the fight continues until Cynthia Rothrock kicks his butt. Later that day, Paul finds his second victim, and it just happens to be Andy Dwyer's wife. Okay, dude, if you really believe that you found your wife, the first chick that you killed, if you really thought mentally that she was your wife, Then you brought her home, tortured and killed her. Why are you still looking for her? You just killed her. Right? And how does he keep randomly finding women who have professional fighters by their side? Like, it's not like he interrogates them to find out because that's part of, Anna was dating a professional fighter, this guy, so, wherever I find her, she got to be with a professional. No, he just stumbles across these chicks who have professional fighters standing by them. Also, this woman looks even less like Anna. Forgetting the fact that she weighs twice as much as Anna did, they look nothing alike at all. Anyway, Paul murders Andy and takes his wife. And then we get to watch Kung Fu Cop's workout regimen for a while, which is good. The movie was getting a little too exciting for me. I just want to sit back and watch a guy strike some poses. I guess it's later on now, because Paul is back on the street talking to a woman when he catches Cynthia's sister out of the corner of his eye. And he decides, Anna! Dude. This is the third chick who has not looked anything like Anna. If anything, the girl you were just talking to looked more like Anna than all of them. But he decides it's Anna, and he's only killed her twice. How does she keep coming back from the grave? I don't know, but I better go grab her and torture her and kill her again. So he goes to grab Anna. This Anna, remember, is Cynthia's sister, who happens to be walking with one of Cynthia's friends, a professional fighter. Because again, somehow Paul only picks women who have professional fighters there. Cynthia's sister also gets in a couple of blows. The fight does not go well. Meanwhile, Cynthia is out in the field playing with some hook swords when Kung Fu Cop informs her of her sister's death. And I'll just say this, Cynthia clearly knows what she's doing, because if I tried half of those moves, I would cut my own head off. While examining her sister's corpse, she notices a series of bruises that she thinks she recognizes. She says that the bruises look like eagle claw technique. So she goes to confront her rival gang's leader, who is a well-known master of the eagle claw technique. I don't know if this is eagle claw, it just kind of feels right. Okay, I'm not going to lie, this fight's actually a lot of fun to watch. Luckily, Kung Fu Cop arrives just in time to stop Cynthia from, killing the poor guy and take the guy into custody. This movie's got a lot of coincidences going on. Kung Fu Cop reveals a secret that we all suspected, that he is also a master of the martial arts, and he knows that those bruises were not eagle claw. So apparently he knows more than Cynthia. He tells her to go home, drop the case, and let the police do their job, which of course is exactly what she does. That's how these movies always go. Or she could just follow another false lead and get into another fight. That's always an option. But Rocco, her big money guy, is actually offended that she asked her opponent a question before the fight. Did you have anything to do with my sister's death? This question offends Rocco so much that he says he's not going to contact her again. He's not going to pay her for fighting anymore, because how dare she talk to the other fighter and ask him a question? This is too personal for him. He's out. So nobody's paying her anymore, right? So she is out of illegal street fighting. Well, of course we can't have this whole setup and not have a fight. So now she's just fighting people freelance. She's not even doing it for money anymore. Is that more or less illegal? To nobody's surprise, the fight is broken up again by Kung Fu Cop, and I think I've got this movie's rhythm down now. The police decide to hire a martial arts expert to come in and analyze the bruise patterns. And the expert tells them that the bruise patterns are the result of a very highly specialized technique that only 3 Americans know. Okay. The fact that the bruises can be so scientifically analyzed that you can determine the exact fighting technique that would cause them, I find a little far-fetched. But fine, let's roll with it. Let's say you can look at a pattern of bruises and know exactly the moves that were used on that person. There's a fighting style that is so highly specialized that only 3 people in the country know how to do it. And this guy just happens to know all 3. And all 3 of them just happen to live in this one city in the country. Wow. Luckily, that list is narrowed down even faster when it turns out that the first guy is actually out of the country on his honeymoon and has been for a month, and the second guy's in a wheelchair missing an arm. So, we know it's got to be the third guy, right? The martial arts expert who somehow knows all three of the people in the country who can perform this martial arts style somehow doesn't know that one of them is in a wheelchair and missing an arm. Like, I'll grant him not knowing that the guy goes on his honeymoon because he's a martial arts expert and he's probably got other concerns. But he knows the three people in the country who all live in this one city that can do this martial art and doesn't know that one of them can't walk and has one arm. So, with only one suspect left, Kung Fu Cop goes to question the suspect, who owns a gym. And as soon as Kung Fu Cop walks into the gym, the owner of the gym goes, "It's the Fuzz, quick, get him," and has everybody in the gym attack the guy. We know what the killer looks like. It's Paul. The guy who owns the gym is not Paul. In fact, this particular plotline goes nowhere, because they figure out pretty quickly this isn't the guy. But first, we have all these thugs try to jump Kung Fu Cop, and then Cynthia catches the guy going out the back, and so he gets interrogated. It doesn't go anywhere. It's a really dead end of a plot. But why would you, the second a cop pokes his head in your door, have all your guys attack him? Were you planning to actually murder the cop? Because that's going to carry a much harsher penalty than anything you were guilty of previously. And it removes all doubt that you're innocent. Right? You can't talk your way out of anything if when you see the cop you try to kill him. And we don't even ever find out what the guy's guilty of that causes him to have this reaction. We just know he's not the killer, and the movie moves on. Forget about the fact that he's now part of 4 people who are guilty of attempted murder of a police officer. So, since the Kung Fu expert failed utterly because he said there's only 3 possible suspects and it turned out not to be any of the 3 of them, the police decided to call in an abnormal psychiatrist to help with the case. 'Cause the woman just happens to be the woman from the start of the movie. You know, Anna's psychiatrist. Oh, and she happens to be Cynthia's sister's college professor. Because at this point, the writers have given up even the pretense of making this movie look like it's set in the real world. Just, the coincidences in this film are staggering. And she points out something I'm sure the cops noticed after the 4th or 5th victim, that all of the women are petite redheads wearing flowery dresses. Lady, not to question your credentials, and I am one of the last people who should get away with saying this, I'm aware, but I've seen the victims, and one of them was definitely not petite. Finally, the psychiatrist begins to suspect that maybe that patient she had, who was a battered spouse, who looks like all of the victims, might somehow be related to the case. And that's when Paul gets a bill in the mail from the doctor addressed to his wife. And he, of course, assumes that it's the doctor who caused his wife to leave him. Although, again, he believes his wife left him, which she did. And then he goes out, finds his wife, and murders her. Then goes out and finds his wife and murders her. Then goes out and finds his wife and murders her. At what point is this guy going to get closure? Also, again, the timing of getting the bill and him connecting the dots between his wife and the psychiatrist is just another of the mind-boggling number of coincidences in this film. When Paul finally abducts the doctor, she starts full-on acting like Anna, which backfires pretty quickly. So then, she starts fighting him, because of course psychiatrists have fighting experience too. That fails as well. Then she uses her super doctor powers to realize that Paul's problems come from the relationship with his mother. So she starts bossing him around and acting like an emotionally abusive mother, which kind of works, but it still ends up with her getting chained up by her loving son. At this point, maybe we should admit that she's not a very good psychiatrist, which could be why she has to work 2 jobs to make a living. Because she's a full-time college professor and a full-time psychiatrist. I don't know how she has that kind of time, but she's definitely going to be missing some work chained up in the basement. And now the action's getting intense. Cynthia finds the warehouse and Paul, and they begin a final epic fight. What about Kung Fu Cop? Don't worry, he's on the way.
Mommy? How?
I'll give it this, it's actually a pretty good fight. Suddenly, the cops show up, and our sweet sword fight turns into a shootout. And even the music makes the switch.
Freeze, police!
And it's so abrupt of a change of music that it gives you whiplash. Anyway, Paul gets a lucky shot and takes out Kung Fu Cop's partner. Then we get some pointless scenes at a hospital where Paul is actually able to fool the cops by wearing a lab coat because police never look at anybody's faces. And he's able to once again get his hands on the doctor. Dude, that's really, that's how you get diseases. And since we're ending our movie with our two main dudes fighting it out, of course they just both randomly decide to rip their shirts off. I mean, how can any dude be expected to fight with his shirt on? That's crazy. Also, what happened to Cynthia Rothrock? Isn't she supposed to be our main character? Cynthia finally shows up and manages to beat Paul with a towel. Turns out that was the secret weapon they needed to use against the undefeatable Paul the whole time. A towel. Okay, that's not really fair. The fight does continue to go on until Paul actually loses first one eye and then another, being slammed into sharp objects where they're fighting. But the towel was really the beginning of the end. Dude, you're all sweaty. Gross. Okay. As far as the fighting goes in this movie, it's actually pretty well done. It's choreographed well, it's executed well. The fight scenes are actually pretty entertaining to watch. But the plot requires you to suspend your disbelief so far beyond what is sane and rational. The movie is filled with tons of bizarre coincidences and all of these dead-end plots that go nowhere. I mean, she has 2 or 3 leads as to who killed her sister, but none of them are right. Then the Kung Fu expert comes in and says, oh, it was caused by this technique, which only 3 people know. And it turns out, no. Either it wasn't caused by that technique or a 4th person knows it because you're wrong, but we're going to spend time proving that it's like an episode of Law and Order that just won't end. And the ending of the movie, Cynthia has avenged the killer of her sister. Kung Fu Cop has stopped a serial killer. And in this moment of catharsis, in this moment of both characters trying to find peace in their world after the tumult of the movie, the big final scene is everybody telling everybody else that they got them into college.
Go ahead and laugh. I enrolled you guys. You all start Monday.
What about you?
Not me.
Yeah, it's you. I enrolled you too.
All right.
I'm pretty sure you can't apply to get somebody else into college. I'm pretty sure you have to apply for yourself. And then, one of the main points of this movie is Cynthia was street fighting because it was the only way she could pay for her sister to go to college. The Kung Fu Cop has made her promise to stop street fighting, and Rocco's stopped paying her anyway. So, who's paying for these 4 new college tuitions? Also, all 4 of these guys got into college? That's some pretty lax admission standards. When did they take their tests? When did they fill out the applications? And again, how do you apply to college for somebody else? Jesus, I could go on and on talking about the nonsense of this movie, or even just this scene. But you know what? I got better things to do. I don't know what they are, but I'm going to go find out.
Those kids were fast as lightning. but they fought with expert timing. They were funky Chinamen from funky China.
Meanwhile, Cynthia's out in the field playing with some hook swords.